the deep-seated, deep down reason you, if you're listening and you're not asking that direct yes or no question, is your sustained fear of social rejection.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot bear to ask and be told no. And the highest producing salespeople in every industry have this odd relationship with the word no, where they can't wait to get it.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian Burton, hanging out with you again. Mr. Burton, the general manager for Benjamin Franklin Plumbing of Scottsdale, most trusted plumber in the Phoenix Valley. Pleasure to have you on here, bro. And looking forward to another great episode. Looking forward to another great episode today. This time, we are talking about the idea of a pattern interrupt. Now, we've talked about the power of a process. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of blowing that process up. Kind of ironic. But it's going to be fun, and it's going to have some impact for you in terms of what you could be doing right now to get yourself out of a rut. I think you know where we're going with it. So we're going to be talking about that, and it's just going to be the two of us hanging out today. So a little bit of an intro to get things kicked off here, and then we'll get to the meat of it. We're going to start it off like we usually do with a quote from Mr. Burton.
It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, okay.
Freaking awesome quote, bro. I'm making a poster out of that. I'm getting a t-shirt. I might get a tattoo.
Is that really him?
Well, I mean, it wasn't in English, so, you know.
No, I guess like I've ever seen a Da Vinci quote. Like I've seen his drawings, I've seen his art and those types of things, but an actual quote.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a pretty smart dude.
He could have been mute for all I knew.
We'll get some more Da Vinci quotes on the show.
Please.
Yes, that's a quote attributed to Da Vinci. And I would say masterfully paraphrased by Jack Nicholson in The Departed, the Scorsese movie. He said, I never wanted to be a product of my environment. I wanted my environment to be a product of me. Love it.
There you go. I love the concept.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm going to do it again. It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. Leonardo da Vinci.
Better the second time.
Yeah, it was epic, man. I was like, what? Da Vinci said that? It was so good. And I feel it, man, because it's like, well, I've gone through patterns, we'll say. Yes, that's right. In my life where I was, victim might be a little strong, but probably accurate, where I was just a product of my environment, where outside circumstances determined everything about me. And if you want to know whether that's you or not, when you get a result you didn't want, see how quickly you blame someone else or something else. And it's a tough way to look at it, man. But it's like, if you don't have a lot going on and you're not seeing a lot of success, real good chance you're waiting for it to come happen to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a jagged little pill to swallow. But I just look over times in my own life, and then I go hang out with people who are very successful, whether it be financially or whether it be like dudes that I hang out with that I just feel like are great dads, dudes that kill it in marriage, dudes that are just spiritual role models of mine, so to speak. In any aspect, just people in general that are better at certain things than I am and vastly better. And I watch how they interact with that part of their lives, and it's very assertive and it's intentional. And I'm not immune to going, well, that's just how they are. She's just really good at that, right? Or she's just lucky. Or, hey, if I had been born in his family, I'd be there too. And it's like, sucks because there's like a give and a take where the harder you work at something and the more dedicated you get, the more you sacrifice your quote unquote me time for something, and be it Netflix or video games or drinking with the homies or golf or whatever it is, right? The more you realize you can be successful at anything if you sacrifice the other things for it. And that's great. It's a really cool realization for me. It really worked wonders in my life so far and will continue to. But the downside is I don't get to play that victim card anymore. I can't say it's just the circumstances. And, you know, that sucks. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. When I just be like, oh, if that was me, I'd be the loser speak.
Yeah, and you see it so much in society today. Like, it's just instant deflection. I see it in my kids. I see it in myself, and I know that too. But like, you know, kids have that funny way of holding the mirror up to you unintentionally because they're just acting out of raw emotion a lot of times. And so, you know, it'll get to a place where I'm talking to my one of my sons and trying to instruct them on, you know, a situation where they were not behaving well or made some poor choices, those types of things. And what's the usual immediate response?
He started it.
It's deflection. It's, you know, oh, but look at what he did, but look at what she did, but look at, you know, you never punish them, you never address their issues. And I appreciate that. I will address those things as they come up, but right now I'm talking about you. Right now I'm talking about your choices. Right now I'm talking about the decisions that you made. And it's difficult to parent in that situation and point back to their choices and then also not reflect upon my own choices. I mean, I can do it. Listen, I can hypocrite with the rest of them, right? But you see it in a child when you're trying to say, and you're trying to address something that needs addressed, and it's just deflection. It's look over here, look over there, look anywhere but at me. And then you think about your own life and you think about, you know, how many times am I playing that same game? I'm more clever at it, you know? I'm more strategic with my words, more contained with my emotions. But it's the same thing. It's look over there, look over here, look somewhere else, but don't look at me. Don't look at my choices. Because we're all trying to shed responsibility. From the garden with Adam and Eve to right now, we have been infected with a necessity to shed responsibility. We are just looking to place that burden somewhere else as long as it doesn't lie upon our shoulders. And that is, unfortunately, the easy path of no resistance, which is why you're saying, Brian, like it's just, you get in that place where it's easier to play the victim card. It's easier to make the excuses. All those things come easier. And when you start realizing that you actually are in control of things, that you actually can make a difference, make a change, you can make better choices, you can study, you can learn, you can improve, those excuses start drying up. And then you're just left with the harsh reality that the reason you are the way that you are, the reason you are where you are, is because of you and not somewhere else or someone else. And I'm thinking about Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which we're doing as a bit of a book study in our main training classes during the week right now for our techs. And habit number 1, proactive versus reactive. That's this exact mentality where the reactive person is always looking for somebody else's problem. It's the world is happening to them, right? And they're stuck in this reactive mode. The proactive person is always trying to figure out how their circle of influence can be expanding. And because their circle expands, along with it comes the circle of control, which is really you. The more you get in control of yourself, the more you get in control and believe in your habits and your choices, the more people want to hang out with you. But we all have some people in our lives who just find this way of always complaining about something and everything's always happening to them. I want to hang out with those people. Nobody does. You know, you might make nice and you might be polite, but eventually it gets kind of tired. It gets really old because the world is always happening to them, to kind of tie it back to your quote, Brian. And that's a great reason why we have this show.
You know what? A quote that I don't remember if Stephen Covey said it in the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or if it was in one of the Sidekick books or something, but he said you could always tell the reactive person. I'm paraphrasing, but his exact words were, the confessing sins part were the exact words. He said, can always tell the reactive person because they spend most of their time confessing other people's sins.
Yeah, I sent this quote to you a while ago, but it just came to mind again. In that chapter, Covey says, and he's using an example of marriage. He says, if you have a problem in marriage, what do I really gain by continually confessing my wife's sins? By saying I'm not responsible, I make myself a powerless victim. I immobilize myself in a negative situation. I also diminish my ability to influence her. My nagging, my accusing, my critical attitude only makes her feel validated in her own weakness. My criticism is worse than the conduct I want to correct, and my ability to positively impact the situation withers and dies.
Phew.
Right across the face.
Yeah. And it's not just our relationship with our husband or wife or kids or boss or subordinates or client. It's all of our relationships. Every single relationship you can think of. Smash cut to extreme ownership. Jocko Willing.
Great book.
It's your responsibility, whatever it is you're talking about. Now, if he's looking at the other person, he's saying the same thing to them. So cool. But that's not our concern. My concern is that it's 100% my responsibility. And that's all I need to know. Anyway, let's pattern interrupt the fact that we're not talking about pattern interrupts. And talk about pattern interrupts.
Yeah, absolutely. Which now seems like a great time to have a pattern interrupt, Ryan. Before we get to the meat of the content, why don't we talk about who we're highlighting for today's special review? Somebody who's taken the time. And I know we talk about this every week, and we really do appreciate it. You know, if you haven't done it yet, okay, I get it. Life's busy. But we would appreciate if you interrupt your pattern, whatever it is right now, to take the time to leave us a 5-star review and maybe a comment or two about what you like about the show, about the absolutely gregarious nature of the hosts, obviously, and the amazing guests, you know, the great looks on this audio only podcast. All these things could be relevant to your comment. But Brian, who took the time to do that for us today?
Real information that's relatable. 5 stars. Great podcast. It is very relatable to the industry and real life stories with real people. I love the guests that they have on the show because they are industry experts and they always tie their experiences back to real examples that people in the trades can relate to, and therefore create a stronger understanding of how to truly better themselves and how to waste no day. Love it. Calls in the name and everything. Cool Guy 109.
All right. Appreciate it, Cool Guy.
Cool Guy. HVAC Tech.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Cool Guy. That's COLL guy. Call Guy?
A little different context there, but
yeah, okay. No longer HVAC.
We are expanding the industry of multiple trades, I guess.
Home services to the next level, baby. Coal Guy. Coal Guy. COLL guy. All right. Maybe somebody can hop on in the Waste No Day Facebook group and tell us what COLL guy means. Either way, Coal Guy, we appreciate you reaching out, dropping us a review, hitting us with the 5 stars. Now, Nate said, jump on and leave us a 5-star review. I will follow that up with saying, if you consider it a 5-star show, drop us a 5-star review. If you consider it a 3-star show, just stop listening. Don't leave us a review because we don't want to hear that crap. We don't need that level of negativity in our lives. All right. We're doing our freaking
already
best
have to
here,
look
man.
at you.
We've literally prepped for minutes before this episode.
Well, I'm sure the listeners will be able to tell that as we step into the real content here. And we're very excited to talk about the idea of a pattern interrupt. And we'll introduce that concept for you here in just a minute. But it's good to talk through this idea, especially as we're coming into different seasons of the year. We're heading into summer and things like that. And I think there's natural pattern interrupts that occur during seasonality change.
Oh, yeah.
For example, kids are getting out of school. There's no longer school buses on the road. So there's already a pattern interrupt in many families and many family situations. Even the traffic patterns change normally around this time of year. Maybe you have a vacation planned or something like that you're looking forward to kind of bump you off the rhythm. But we want to talk about it from more than just like what normally happens at this time of year, about actually inserting pattern interrupts into your life, perhaps even your process and things like that, to wake you up with the intention of that. So it's time now to put ourselves both in your passenger seat. Our guest today is yours truly, and we're going to be talking about the idea of the pattern.
Yeah, heck yeah, bro. Best guests ever.
Of course. So, Brian, let's set up the concept here of generically, introduce it a little bit there on the front end, but generically, what is a pattern interrupt and why are we talking about it?
All right. I will go not generic in the slightest bit and very, very, very objective by telling a story.
Of course.
I was going to start, and here you go with the sarcasm. All right, let's go. Let's take a little winter trip. What do you say? Want to take a little winter trip with me, buddy?
In the middle of summer?
What is it?
Sure.
It's the end of May as we record this of 2025. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. It's, 104 out today. What's the temperature there in Pennsylvania?
55 and raining.
Oh, God. Man, I really miss it there, bro. I mean, the sun is the sun's always out here. It's just awful.
This is one of those days that you definitely would have missed, Ryan.
One of those days. That's every third day. All right. So we're not going to Pennsylvania or Phoenix in this story. We're going to Alaska.
All right.
December 1943. Lieutenant Leon Crane, a 24-year-old Army Air Corps pilot, took off on a routine test flight with a full plane over the Alaskan wilderness. Mid-flight, the passengers of the B-24 bomber suffered engine failure, and this thing spiraled out of control. Crane managed to parachute out just before the aircraft crashed into the mountains near the Charlie River. Lieutenant Crane was the sole survivor of that B-24 accident. Crane landed in waist-deep snow, equipped with only a Boy Scout knife, a handful of matches, and his parachute. No food, no map, no survival training. Like, what? Now, standard protocol for downed pilots was to stay near the crash site and wait for rescue. That's still the case. But Crane assessed his situation. No one knew his exact location, and he was in the brutal Alaskan winter, which is pretty unforgiving. Probably in the summer, it's pretty unforgiving there.
Yeah.
And he made a choice. And his choice was to break the pattern of his training. Instead of waiting, he decided to move. For days, he trekked through the snow-covered wilderness, battling sub-zero temperatures, subsisting on melted snow. After 9 days, he stumbled upon a small abandoned trapper's cabin stocked with canned food, a rifle, and some other supplies. Dude, can you imagine? He hadn't had a meal, right?
Yeah, I was just 9 days. I guess
9
the water,
days.
But
melted snow.
Crazy.
He's drinking melted snow. The story didn't say anything about him finding food, but maybe he did.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Some berries. Maybe he was fortunate enough to catch a rabbit.
Waist deep snow. I don't know about that.
Take the gun out. He didn't have a gun on him yet. Have you ever tried to catch a rabbit or a bird?
Yes. No.
It's not possible.
I've not been effective.
It's just not. But this trapper's cabin discovery was a turning point. But he didn't stop there. Why? Well, nobody knew where he was. Lieutenant Crane continued his journey, moving from one trapper's cabin to another, each time finding just enough resources to sustain him to the next one. And after 84 grueling days trekking through the wilderness, he finally reached a mining camp and was rescued. 84 days in waist-deep snow.
Oh, my word.
Lieutenant Leon Crane's survival wasn't about physical endurance. Well, it kind of was. But it was more about mental resilience and the courage to defy standard operating procedures when they no longer served him. Right? Staying put and waiting, which would have led to death in those unique circumstances. But what are we talking about? We're not going to be jumping out of, well, most of us aren't going to be jumping out of planes. But in our lives, we also cling to routines like following the same sales script, or in most cases, no script at all. But following an old script even when it's not working. And I don't mean you're in a slump for 2 days, but maybe the script has never really done that well. You close at 42%. But handling objections with the same rebuttals and expecting different results. But in most cases, let's be honest, not handling rebuttals, because we don't ask for the business on a regular basis because we're afraid of rejection. Coming home disengaged from our families, thinking we're too tired to connect. But sometimes breaking the pattern is exactly what we need. It's what we need to close the sale. It's what we need to deepen our relationships, to grow into the men and women that we aspire to be. So we have to ask ourselves, where are we sticking to patterns that are no longer serving us? So this podcast wasn't supposed to be, it is obviously sales and pattern interrupts in sales and how freaking amazingly effective they can be. But I called it on what we were going to talk about on this episode and title it. And I said pattern interrupts. And I was thinking about it from a sales perspective because it's been a while, maybe even a couple years since we really did a deep dive on that. But for whatever reason, I won't go into what the day brought to me, but it was going to be a tough day. I knew it. And it was maybe even tougher than I thought it was going to be. And the stuff that I had to work through, Nate's laughing because he knows what my day looked like. There's no getting around it being a miserable day. But I had a decision to make when I came up with this talk this morning. The title and topic for this episode. I happened to think just briefly about the fact that I sure could use a pattern interrupt and not having to have the day I was going to have. And I'm like, well, I can't change the circumstance any more than you who's driving to a call right now can change the client you're going to see. But what can I pattern interrupt? My attitude. The way that I'm going to approach what I'm going to have to deal with today. And I approached it like somebody who was fully in control of the situation that I was going to deal with, and someone that was going to directly determine the attitudes of everyone else that was with me. And guess what? That's exactly what I did. It was far less bad than it could have been. Why? Because we can always make things a million times worse with our attitude, and will if we're not paying attention. And that goes for me 10 times more than most people because I'm slightly more aggressive than most people. So when most people make things worse, they make it a little bit worse. When I make things worse, I make them 1,000 times worse. Right? You've seen this, Nate. You've seen this play out in manager meetings with the owners of the company together many times where what attitude I carry into the situation can make it better or as bad as it could possibly be. So I had to ask myself that question, which is, what bold move could I make today to change the trajectory of the day, the service call, the people I'm going to talk to on the phone today, the training that I'm going to deliver, whatever place in the business you're in. Shoot. What's that? Physical therapist lady told us that she listens to this show with her kids in the car because she had listened to it with her husband once and loved it. And she thanked us profusely for not swearing on the show. Remember that? That was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a reason that we ran forward with the keeping it clean thing. But she said, I got to thank you so much for having a show that I can get smarter listening to, but don't have to worry about swearing, because every other show she could think of, they swore a lot. So I was going to say, but yeah, so whether you're in a business or not, like she's not even in a home services business, right? But whatever it is you do throughout the day, whatever your roles encompass, whatever you're walking into or whatever you're currently involved in, a pattern interrupt personally in your own mind can literally change the course of that interaction and the course of your day and probably the day of the person that you're dealing with. And in most situations, if you're feeling it, they're feeling it. And you can light up two people's day, whether you want to or not. Just do it anyway. So what bold move can you make to change your trajectory today? Service call. Because like Lieutenant Crane, your survival, your success might just depend on your willingness to break a pattern today.
That's a great, impactful story there, Brian. And I mean, I can't even fathom going 9 days, between food, much less trying then to survive for the better part of 3 months.
84 days.
Which is just astonishing. And what an incredible feat of both physical and mental ability. And the mental thing is so real. And, I understand how you're using that analogy. And I was just thinking about on the relational side of things, like pattern interrupts have a lot of impact, and for good reason. Because as a married man of 17 years, it's pretty easy to fall into the groove, the rut, the normal life, right? Get home from work, have supper, hang out with the kids, run off to that evening's activities if you have those, come home, do the bedtime routine, clean up a couple things, and then guess what time it is? Couch time, right? It's couch time. That special time when the house is supposed to be quiet and, you can finally relax from the day and all those types of things. And what it's so easy to fall into there is the couch time, with my wife can easily become two people still isolated, sitting on the couch, quote unquote, together. And I heard it a while ago to say that if you spend 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, having an eyeball to eyeball conversation with your spouse, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, you are investing 1% of the day into your spouse, into your relationship. And it kind of made me sit back and say, my goodness, what a little investment for one of the things that I would consider to be most valuable. 15 minutes. And it's not just that. It's, date nights can easily get scrapped, or weekends away, or whatever. And so in my personal view of things, my relationship with God is number one. My relationship with my wife is number two. My relationship with my kids is number three.
Whoa. Forgot somebody there, buddy.
Distant four, Brian.
Who's Sarah? Minnick is a distant four?
We'll leave you to fill in that blank.
I'll take number two.
But with my relationship with my wife, we love each other and we known each other for 2 decades. And so there's a lot of history. There's all these types of things, which is great. But it also lulls you to sleep. It lulls you into a place of false security because you don't realize it. Relationships are always in a state of drift. And unless you're personally investing into them, pulling yourselves back together, you'll eventually find yourselves kind of losing contact, losing point of reference. And so it's good in my perspective, it's good from a relational perspective, not only to insert pattern interrupts into the day, but also into the cadence of the week or the month or the year. And that's why my wife and I try to have at least one date night a month and at least 1 to 2 weekend getaways where it's just the two of us for the year. And maybe that's not necessarily possible for you, or maybe it looks a little bit different in your life. And I've heard lots of different patterns that come around that. But the idea is to interrupt the norm, to bring awareness to, have we fallen into some, rut or groove or just, kind of head down, keep on plodding along. And we've not been investing in something seriously. Now bring that back into the trades, right? It doesn't really matter whether it is how you run the call or what training you're doing or when you wake up or when you take your lunch or whatever. I guarantee you, you're existing on the vast majority of a pattern throughout your day. You wake up at 5, maybe you go to the gym, you grab breakfast, you stop at the same gas station on the way into the shop. Maybe it's a morning meeting or something like that, and then off to the calls, and from the calls to another gas station for lunch and all those types of things. And you have this pattern. And it's not to say that the pattern is necessarily wrong. The pattern interrupt is designed to create an interruption into that pattern to assess it and say, is this actually what I need to be doing? Is this beneficial? Is this proactive approach to my life, my career, my relationships, my family, any of those things? Or does something need to change? It's kind of like that pause moment where like you get woken up from the lullaby of life that you just kind of fall asleep to in so many ways. And you kind of come back around and you jolt awake a little bit and say, wait a minute, is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to be living? Is this how I'm going to be pursuing my career, my dreams, my objectives? And if we don't intentionally insert pattern interrupts into our life, we will live reactively. And sometimes they come organically, Sometimes you get that phone call from somebody, somebody passed away, or you see something traumatic, or something comes out of the blue and kind of slaps you across the face, so to speak. But it doesn't have to take those crazy traumatic scenarios that life sometimes bring to us. You can insert a pattern interrupt into your day right now to say, wait a minute, is this where and how I want to be living my life right now? My career, my family. You pick the sphere of influence that you have. But what pattern interrupt are you living in, or can you bring in right now to interrupt the pattern that you're existing in that may or may not be the one that you want to stay in? I think intentionally inviting those types of moments into your life is not only good, it's healthy, and it can produce tangents and changes of direction that can have great impact to the rest of your life.
Yeah. So what do pattern interrupts look like in selling?
Well, I think you mentioned it at the beginning there a little bit to say, and I want to balance this out a little bit because we've actually done an episode on the power of a process earlier this year, and we've done one a few years before that. And we very much value the power of a process. There is strength there. But the process can also lead to that just acceptance of 42% close, right? This is what I am. And so I think when you're asking the question there, Brian, what does it look like in sales? From that perspective, it looks like actually asking yourself, are these the results that I actually want to get? And am I willing to investigate where things could be better to get better results?
Well, let's break it down to a little bit more micro level, right? I'm on a sales call now. It's not going well. What does a pattern interrupt look like? And I'll give you an example. I believe a label, a Chris Voss label, right? I don't know where it came from, but the first time I can remember it being called that is in Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss on one of his 2 Waste No Day episodes, including episode 100. Thank you very much. Thank you. Where you're going into the call, it's a call back on another tech, a tech you don't like, even better, right? It's not your homie. You're going in to run a callback on someone else. And, we make light of it and I make a joke out of it, but the joke comes from pain. I've been there more times than I can remember, where I was almost home on call late at night, pouring rain, don't want to be out, starving, dinner's in the microwave, right? Missed movie night with the kids, which has been a Friday night tradition of ours for, I don't remember, 2014 or something. And you get that call and you have to go back out 45 minutes away because of something that another technician did earlier that day. And they forgot to turn the temperature gauge back up on the water heater when they flushed it. They replaced a flapper in a toilet and it's running. I mean, I've seen it a million times in electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. Some corny little thing that the tech forgot to do, and the client demands service tonight. And what are you going to do? Now you're going to be a crybaby and start sucking your thumb and I'm not running it. I don't run it night. Or are you going to be a grown up and go serve the client? Hopefully, if you listen to Waste No Day, you're on the grown up side where you're going to go take care of the client. Now, I'm going to leave some massive deep knuckle wounds in my dashboard for sure. And God forbid someone cuts me off on the way there. You're going to probably vent the way you need to. And part of the problem is not only are all those circumstances accurate, it's miserable. You don't want to be out. It's late. You missed something you wanted to do. Your food's going to be cold and microwaved, and it's never as good out of the microwave. But you're going to a call where this client already sounds upset. Anyone demanding service in the evening for a nothing call is just probably a Karen. And you don't want to be there, and you don't want to talk to this person. So the pattern on that type of call is to walk in, barely making eye contact, and hurry up and get to the thing and fix the thing and get out as fast as you can and not have to engage. But the label, as Chris Voss would put it, the client's upset. The most effective thing to do would be to call out the fact that they're upset and call out the reason. And maybe even make it worse when you say it than it is in their head. Like, what? It's so counterintuitive. It's such a pattern interrupt. Because you would say something like, so we came out to fix your toilet today and now it's running. You probably think we don't know the slightest thing about plumbing. And that would be the weirdest, most difficult thing to say in that moment, right? Versus just like, hey, yep, I'm Brian. Yeah, I don't know what his problem was. You want to show me where it is? I'll fix it for you. Like, whatever, right? But the pattern interrupt or the label would be call out their pain and even call it out to slightly worse than it probably actually is. And the result of them getting to agree with you and vent without you defending yourself or the company or your teammate, but just being hat in hand open to saying, hey, we messed up here. Not even apologizing, just saying we messed up and letting them pile on just a second. They're not going to make 15 minutes out of it. They don't start doing that until you start taking away their right to be upset about it, right? It's a takeaway, like anything in sales. If you take it, I want it. So if you start pulling back my right to be upset and making excuses, I'm going to come after you. This is how we're wired. But if you bend over further backwards to make me feel better and say, you probably think we don't even know what we're doing. It probably seems like we did this on purpose. What you'll see is they might vent a little bit. Some of them, most cases, they're going to pull back right there and go, oh, I don't think you guys don't know plumbing. I mean, that's a little heavy. I mean, wish it was done right the first time, obviously. And then you just breathe and just let them speak for a minute. When they stop speaking, you can just hit them with something like, well, I'm glad I'm here. I mean, I'm not glad you had to go through this, but I am glad I get to be the one to take care of you. So pattern interrupt in a selling situation, because guess what? When you're on a callback, you're in a selling situation. How do I know? I was the master. Not the master, but I loved getting on. I say not the master because there's probably guys out there doing 100 times as much as I was. But I loved getting a call for a callback, especially on one of my buddies, and being able to close the stuff that they didn't close, especially if there was a bunch of things on the option sheet that didn't get closed. And I would go, most of the time I was in a truck, there were no tablets, so it was paper. But I would go, you mind if I take a look at the invoice he left you? Yeah, here it is. Oh, okay. I see he recommended all this stuff, and you just went with this repair here. And then we start having a conversation about it. And I'm going, do you fully understand why he would recommend all these things? Did that make sense to you? And guess what? We're about to start dialoguing and having some back and forth about the options that you left and didn't close. And I'm going, I'm selling as hard as I'll ever sell in my life, so that tomorrow morning at the meeting, I get to show you my copy of that invoice. And no matter what time it was, I was staying and do the work that night so that I could bring you that completed invoice tomorrow and just, laugh. And I'm not like about breaking a dude, but like just all's fair in love and sales, like a jab, like I got you, bro. And then you'll get me the next time. And I loved that kind of counteraction, that back and forth. And it was always a good time. So on a callback, you're in a selling situation. There's things to be sold there. And if there's nothing to do there whatsoever, there's a client to be sold on using you next time there. So you're always in a selling situation. And if you can hit a pattern interrupt, you will make them fall in love with you. If you can take them out of that state that they're in, and I don't mean they're okay and thank you so much for coming out late and fixing it for us. That's base level. Everybody gets that. That's just pay to play. There's nothing extra in that. Like I got that when I was the worst communicator on earth and I just ran up on a callback and I didn't treat them very well at all. And I just tried to hurry up and get out. And then they were so grateful on my way out. So what? Of course they are. Now, what you're trying to do is make them eat out of the palm of your hand. They will never call another garage door tech for the rest of the time they live in your area. That's your job. That's what the pattern interrupts for. So in a regular selling situation, there are pattern interrupts that just make you different from every other technician or salesperson they've ever had out. And one of the things, it's been a while since we talked about it. One of the things I did personally, because of the fact that I was at a place that ran plumbing maintenance calls twice a year, which is fairly unheard of. We didn't have a ton of calls, ton of clients. We flushed the water heater and did the plumbing inspection twice a year. So you were seeing clients for the 5th time in 2 years sometimes. So one thing I did to break that pattern of going in there and getting nothing and just scurrying out over and over and over again, I honestly don't remember how it started or the first time I did it, but I can think of several times that I did it and remember them pretty clearly. But it was to sit down, and if there was a coffee cup on that table, I was using that. And I would say, Nate, plumbing system looks fantastic, buddy. I'm glad I'm out here every 6 months for the 5th time straight, just to make sure that everything is perfect in their system. Because God forbid you had something wrong and I got paid today. I would hate that. And I would say, you got a quick minute to play a game with me?
Let's do it.
I won't take too long. I promise. I'll be out of your hair in no time. Let's say this is your coffee cup here. Let's say this coffee cup is a magic lamp.
All right.
And you're going to rub on the side of this lamp, right? And a little blue genie's going to pop out. And he's going to grant you one wish. Now, here's 2 rules. 1, you can't
wishes.
wish for more wishes. That's right. Can't wish for more wishes. Didn't you see the movie?
Yeah.
Number 2, it has to be related to your plumbing system. So if you rub this lamp, genie pops out. He's going to grant you one wish about your plumbing system. But after he grants you that wish, your plumbing system is going to be perfect. What would you wish for? And they'll think for like a 5 Mississippi, and then I'll go, you got to rub the lamp. And that's the exact reaction I got 99% of the time. They would just chuckle a little bit, and they would grab the coffee cup and just rub the side and close their eyes. Women particularly loved it. Most men played along, but they were like somewhat uncomfortable with it. But women oftentimes would like look up and close their eyes like they were actually wishing, which I freaking loved it, man. I had so much fun. And they would say something. Now, we were going from a call that you dreaded going to. Like, they might be good people, but man, I know there are no plumbing issues at that house, right? It's going to be 4 or 5 years before there's anything really to recommend there again. Yet, here we go. We gotta put calls on the schedule. So in that moment, they would rack their brain to come up with an answer for something to give me to sell them. You talk about a pattern interrupt. And I'm telling you, 85, 90% of the time they came up with something. No, I didn't love it when they said like, oh, this linoleum that you're sitting on right now under us, this linoleum would come up and I'd put really nice white tile down. I'm like, ugh, great. All right, I'll get out of your hair. Anything else? Oh, look, you said another wish. Or I'd remodel the kitchen or whatever, right? It didn't always go my way, but the fact that I had that pattern interrupt. Now, if there's no coffee cup, I should say this because oftentimes there won't be a coffee cup. It was a pen. And obviously there was no tablets. I always had a pen on me. So I would use the pen and say, this is a magic wand, right? And I would set it down in front of them and tell them like, and I'd say, what would change? And they'd sit there 3 to 5 seconds and they would go, and I go, oh, hold up. You got to use the wand. Do you want it to come true? And they just chuckle and pick the wand up and go and do the little poof move, right? And they would say something. And sometimes it would be something fantastic. I wait way too long to get hot water to my master shower. And I had techs doing this in HVAC and electrical. And the things that I would hear were this room was way too hot when all the rest are cool, and just weird sounds that the system makes when the air kicks on in this one room, or it's just too dusty in here, right? Ching. And electrical would be really cool things, kind of outside the box things like lighting out front or in the kitchen, motion sensor lights, dimmers, generators, things like this that you're probably not always presenting on every call, but it opens the door to things you weren't talking about. So pattern interrupts can be your best selling tool. And that moves me into probably the best pattern interrupt of all, a joke, humor. If you can just come out of left field with something that makes the client laugh, especially in a tense situation, you are golden. You really can't do better than that. And we did an episode a couple months ago, 2-3 months ago, where it was, what was the title of that? I don't remember, but we talked about jokes, using jokes on calls, and what I decided to do for that episode instead of us coming up with jokes, because we come up with jokes that are not funny all the time and making you suffer through those. I got jokes from a bunch of our buddies that are sales trainers and top sales pros in the industry. And I had them text them to me and read the text messages on the episode of these are what Jeremy Miner and Brent Buckley and all these hitters do to joke around with the clients.
That was actually on episode January 13th, 2025. Break the ice and build rapport with clients using humor and wit.
Yeah, there you go. That's a long title.
Yes.
I would have just been like, jokes. So joking around like what I just did there, great pattern interrupt. The more serious the conversation and tone is, the more anxiety in the room, the less funny the joke has to be, and the more laughing that will happen. Because it's a pendulum. And the harder it's pulled over to that stressed out side, the harder it'll swing back the other way when a joke happens. If it's too tense a situation, I would avoid making it at the client's expense. I would use myself on that one, right? Like Jeremy Miner does he said, like, if you're a bald tech, I forget what the context was, but it was the client would say something like, hey, how's it going, man? What you been up to? And you say, I just been out shampoo shopping. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that.
So that kind of thing where you're not really being offensive even to yourself, but you can just make a little joke at yourself's expense. And the client will laugh at that. It's not that funny, right? It's just irony. That's ironic humor. But in those tense moments, those kind of jokes are much funnier than normal. So you want to use them in those moments. It's like something Jack at our shop does all the time is part of his pattern interrupt is we do a training exercise in our shop where we'll do 60 seconds Like I'll set my stopwatch for 60 seconds and you're a tech and another tech are up front. And if you're the tech this time, let's say we're going to talk about whole house surge protectors today. You have 60 seconds to ask as many questions as you can, getting the client interested in whole home surge protection. And go. And we're counting down from 60, right? And you might get 8 questions. You think you could knock out 30 questions in that time, but you won't. You'll get like 8. And Jack will get interest and he'll say things like, how protected is your home from a lightning strike or a big surge from the power company? And you might go like, what do you mean protected? Oh, I have the strip that like my TV's plugged into. Oh, that's great because TVs aren't cheap. But what about the refrigerator with the ice maker and all that? Because that's like a lot more expensive than that. What about your washer and dryer? They look brand new. Oh, no, that's not. So they're not protected from that stuff? Oh, gosh, I guess not. And here's the pattern interrupt kind of humorous thing. Would you hate me if I showed you a way to protect everything at once? Great, right? Instead of, here's what you need. You should. If I were you, I would just put this on, right? No. It's a little bit of humor and asking that question. And we probably need to do an episode on knock it off with the periods at the end of your sentences on a call. This should be all questions. I want to get some real breakdowns on how many sentences that the top salespeople in the industries use that end with a question mark versus a period versus the lowest performers. Now, I used to hear these things when I was a young tech. I'd hear these sales trainers talking about you should just be asking questions the whole time. And I'll go, I don't know, I can only think of like 3, right? Do you want one? There's one. Why not? There's another one. Are you sure? And there's the third one. But if you really put time and practice into it, you know what you could do? You could hop into the blue collar closer community where Nate and I have a live Q&A every Thursday night. Our full training, our full sales process broken down into short 3 to 5 minute videos, fully digestible, very easy. A massive community of salespeople and techs all over the world, pushing each other, helping each other to get better, role playing with each other. But we get on these lives and we do this. We role play this live. And I just pick technicians that are on the live video and say, your turn, 60 seconds and go. And you just start asking questions. And the first couple people that go will get like 3 or 4. And the last person that goes will get like 13. And everyone that watches one happen gets better. And what happens is you start programming your brain to not only learn questions to ask, but figure them out in the moment. And we get some real shy people on there doing it who start really slow. And what happens is 100% of the time, be it in teams that I train at companies I work for or at boot camp when I bring literally everyone in the building up on stage or on these live Zoom calls on Thursday evenings, the people forget that there's an audience and they start thinking about the task at hand. And the reason I use the stopwatch and everybody's competing is because it makes it happen even faster. You just forget. And all your brain focuses on is let me get another question while building interest in the product. You're telling me you didn't know? Oh man, what does that feel like finding that out? What if there was a way that you could? Is that something you want to know more about? Right? These are the questions that just pop, 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 leading the client all along to basically ask you for it, right? Questions are a pattern interrupt.
This is great stuff, Brian. And I think you're so spot on there, especially with the questions piece. We definitely should do an entire episode around the concept of questions and diving in more there. And as we kind of wrap this one up, I wanted to shift to the other side of the equation because you've been focused a lot on the concept of a pattern interrupt when you're doing the presentation, when you're interacting with the client, and when we might assume things are going fairly well. I want to kind of get your take as we bring the plane in for a landing here on what to do pattern interrupt when you can feel the call slipping away from you. when you're presenting to the client and you see that dead man look on their face and like they're clearly disinterested, or the phone's out of the pocket and they're like texting on the phone, like you do so frequently when I'm talking to you, and they're disengaged and you're just like saying words out of your mouth hole, waiting until you end the sentence so you know what they're going to say is just going to be, yeah, thanks a lot. Could you go ahead and email that? When you're in a situation like that, Brian, have you found it effective to employ a pattern interrupt? What comes to mind for me would be the Sandler sales, like feel it, call it, timeout. But I want to get your take on what to do when you feel things slipping away from you, and if that's an appropriate time to interrupt the pattern and do something different.
Yeah, I would say there's probably never an inappropriate time to do something that's just kind of, I say this lightly, but shake things up a little bit. Our biggest fear is certainly young technicians early on is to get any emotion out of the client whatsoever. Like, I'm just trying not to rock the boat here,
Right.
But anything that really causes a pattern interrupt when you're heading in a negative direction, you better do a pattern interrupt, because the pattern you're in right now is the one that they're going to tell you they have to think about it and you're leaving with nothing. And they have the same exact situation as they had when you got there. That's a good time to say, I failed today. And one thing that could keep you from that failure is a pattern interrupt right there, which is to say, oh yeah, this looks good. Yeah, can you just shoot me this in an email?
Yeah, let's role play that, Brian. Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So you would be presenting to me.
Yep. Yeah. So am I just asking my typical buying question, or where are we at?
Yeah, maybe introduce, kind of the tail end of what you were talking about.
Here are the three options we went over.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically speaking, if you were going to choose one of these options today, which one do you think you'd lean towards?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here to consider. Probably something that I'll have to think about for a while and let you know.
If you were going to do one, would there be one in particular that stands out?
I can't say that any of them are really standouts to me. Yeah.
So you're just not interested in this. We're pretty far away from a pattern interrupt saving this thing. That's the case. Like, you're not the slightest bit sold on this thing.
Yeah, it's not that. Well, I don't know that I want to be sold on anything, Brian. But
I actually meant to break role play there and say that, like, you're pretty far away from, like, this isn't time for an objection rebuttal. I would literally have to start the call over because there's zero interest here. I had no business.
Right, but that's where some people are finding themselves. They're finding themselves at that point, and like, are they trying? So I don't want to be like, it's too late to rescue it. You know what I'm saying? Like, or maybe it is. In which case, what do you do? But
it is. Yeah, you start over. You got to figure out in this moment. If I said, hypothetically speaking, if you were to choose one of these today, which one would you lean toward? Which is an actual script in the GoPro system, and you said none of them. And then I came back one more time to ask it again. Okay, but if you were going to, is there one that stands out in particular? And you said it again? Like, no, not really. None of them stand out. I've gone way too far.
Yeah, something went wrong earlier.
Nothing happened at all. I didn't build the slightest bit of interest there, right? So remembering, and this is a great place for this to have gone. It's a perfect place for it to have gone. Not where you wanted it to go, but a great place, which is to say, you didn't have any business moving to a close right here, right? If you were actually looking for him to say yes and buy right here, it was way too early. So what I feel in my gut happened with you as a client, if this is how you're acting, I was explaining things, doing a whole lot of talking and a whole lot of sentences that ended in a period. And you were looking at your phone half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean it. That I hear the real conversations with techs and I go, bro, what's with all the talking? What's with all the periods? Where were the questions to get this person engaged? Be honest. Did he have his phone out while you were saying this? Yeah, I mean, it was going back in the pocket and then coming back out periodically. He had a lot going on. He's a busy dude, right? Like, And I would say, So if the pattern interrupt here in this role play would have to be something like, oh, Nate, you're absolutely right. I get it. None of these stand out to you. Doesn't really seem like any of these are for you. Let's back up a little bit. Right. And I would literally say that, let's back up a little bit. Now, you told me in the beginning that you had X going on and that Y was an issue for you. And here's how you said the problem with such and such made you and your wife and your kids feel. Right. And so we would just back up and talk about the pain points again. And I'm going to get him to reiterate those pain points again. And then I'm going to lead him back down a path, or maybe even for the first time, down a path of how X product and Y solution can help that feeling go away and be replaced with a feeling of X.
See, and I think that's important, Brian, because I feel like there's people listening to this show who they get to what they consider to be the point of no return, and they're like, well, there it went, lost it again.
Shot that one.
Over the hill it goes, and whew, the roller coaster's already down the track, and there's no bringing it back. And so I'm asking, like, for them, well, number one, is there a point of no return? And then number two, like, can you see the point of return coming? And before you get there, say, hey, time out, Brian. Can I ask you a question? It seems like maybe what we're talking about here isn't really that interesting to you. Like, and how bold can you get, right?
You can do anything you want. Literally anything you want. Here's the problem. I would say there's a point of no return for newer technicians and salespeople. That point of no return is asking for the business one time. The challenge is, bro, believe me, I use like Phil Falasky and Brent Buckley all the time because they're the two highest producing technicians we've had on the show. 13 or 14 million and 19 million in a year. These guys barely hear the word no happen. So you could put Brent in a call right now, and 7 minutes after meeting, he could ask someone to buy something. And they're going to say no. And all we consider that in higher level professional selling is taking the client's temperature. I'm like, hey, they seem really in. I'm just going to ask them to buy it. You want me to go ahead and start throwing this thing in? What? No, I'm not. Well, why? No, you didn't even tell me how much it was. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll get there. Boop, on we go. No effect on the salesperson whatsoever.
Autocorrect for the ears.
Literally. Like, there's no effect on the salesperson. But that's not the majority of our audience, is it? 80%. So 80% of salespeople, so 80% of our audience doesn't even ask for the business one time on a regular basis. Why?
They don't know to ask.
Most of the cases, they don't realize they're not asking.
The paper, the iPad, or the whatever, thinking that they're doing the presentation, and it's an inferred question.
Yep. And the deep-seated, deep down reason if you're listening and you're not asking that direct yes or no question, is your sustained fear of social rejection.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot bear to ask and be told no. And the highest producing salespeople in every industry have this odd relationship with the word no, where they can't wait to get it. And I mean that literally. Because with every no they get comes a reason that the client thinks it's not a good idea. And every time they get one of those reasons, they go, yes, I have something to work with. This could be the only one. And they fix that and show the client, we can move forward anyway. Here's how, and here's how much you're going to love this. And then the client says no again. And all that is one more reason the client thinks it's not a good idea. And in most cases, it's not a real objection, meaning we can overcome it, meaning it's something in their head that's not true. And the salesperson overcomes it, and a deal happens, and everybody's happier. But in the younger technician, the younger salesperson's case, and I don't mean age-wise, I don't even mean how long you've been doing it, because they're a 25-year. Dude, we had people at boot camp who had been in their profession for 20, 30 years and came to me during the picture taking piece, the quote unquote graduation ceremony, where we do the graduation certificates and a little celebrating and pictures. and said, bro, I didn't know what to do with myself when you started talking about the fact that I don't ask for the business. And I had to really think and look back and realized I don't ask my clients to buy anything. And those are the ones posted on social media afterwards. $100,000 a month. First ever. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Doesn't matter how old you are. When I say a young salesperson, I mean you have not had professional training at any high level yet. You're brand new to it. So you've probably only been in the blue collar closer group for a short amount of time. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't finish that earlier, but just jump in there. bluecollarcloser.com. Check out our school community. It is a training platform. Full system broken down. At the point of this recording, until we get to 300 members, it is less than $50 a week. Will you make back more than $50 a week having this intensive training in our school community? Only if you use it. And you don't even have to use it that much for $50. Are you kidding me? For $50 a week? Like, you don't have to just be on the Q&A on Thursday evening live with me, and we'll role play together. That's all you would have to do to make way more than an extra $50 a week. So the people in there going like, I want the training, but man, that's salty. Like, you'll make that back substantially. And then in the classroom section of it, you can just watch me breaking down the sales process in these short videos of every literal step of the sales process that you get to adopt as your own. And just that part alone would make you that money back in spades. Like, it's ridiculous not to get in. Now, when we hit our founding 300, we call it, members, the price is going up. It will never go back down to that level. And the first 300 members will never have a price increase. Inflation protected. But everyone else is coming in at the new investment amount. So get up in there, man. Check it out, or at least take a look at it. If you want more information without just jumping in, shoot us an email, service@wastenoday.net. Service@wastenoday.net. Anything you want from us. We got people answering that email. Sometimes my wife even answers that email.
Oh, wow, special. And maybe that's the pattern interrupt that people need, Brian. And in many ways, that's kind of what the episode is focused around.
It really is, man. It really is, because you've got guys who do not post on social media, getting in that group. And here's the thing. You start at level 1. At level 1, you get to watch like the intro videos, but you don't get to jump into the classroom. You don't really get to start all the content until you hit level 2. And guess what you have to do to hit level 2?
You got to be on that community board.
You got to get in the community. You got to make an intro post about yourself. Tell us, hey, here's a goal I want to hit. I'm so-and-so. Here's where the city I'm from, company I work at. Here's what I do. We love the post where it's like, here's how I got into the trade. And here's a goal that I have in mind. And I need to hit it by this date. And if I hit it, I'm taking the family on a Disney cruise. Like, these are the kind of things that people say in the community. And you get the whole community just rallying around you. It's phenomenal. But that's a big step for a lot of techs to post something like that, because they don't do that stuff. They like a meme on Facebook every now and then, but they don't make posts. Here's the thing. This kind of thing is exactly the pattern interrupt you probably need right now. Become a blue collar closer with us. It's a blast in there, for one. But the content's phenomenal. The training, it's great training, man. And it takes a lot for me to say that about something that I do because I'm not wired like that. But it is what it is. Too many people are succeeding massively as a result of it. And then you get this community of dudes and women who are just like, who are grinding. They're like going after it. And they're pushing each other and helping each other. And that live role play is awesome. And you get access to over 90 Wiser Wednesday training videos edited and being dropped in there as we speak. And that is the most ridiculous trainers in the industry have come on and just done a back and forth with me, with Q&A, with audience members. And we edit them all up, and they're video, not just audio, and drop them in the group. So there's 100 reasons to get in that group. shoot us an email, service@wastenoday.net if you have questions, or just go check it out, bluecollarcloser.com.
It's a great place to leave it, Brian. And it's been a fantastic episode today. Maybe today's episode is, in fact, the pattern interrupt that you need to take a look at things, whether it's your process, your relationships, or anything else in your life that could do with a little bit of change. Now's a great time to consider that. It's been a good episode in terms of reminding you also what the power of the pattern interrupt within the sales process itself can do for you. Whether you're succeeding or having a good conversation with somebody and you're interrupting it with a little bit of levity or dealing with something like that to break up the habit, or whether the call seems to be slipping away from you and you use the pattern interrupt to kind of reset and start over, I think there's benefits to the concept on both sides of the equation. And not just in the house, in the home, in front of a client, but at your own home as well. And we would encourage you to become a well-rounded individual. Don't succeed at your career at the expense of your personal relationships. And the other is true as well. Make sure that you are providing for your personal relationships with an incredible career. And so we hope this episode has served to interrupt your pattern and focus you on those concepts for today. We're going to leave you now with our weekly challenge, which continues to be the same: to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.